I've seen many people make their own versions of tier lists based on Fire Emblem characters, but there's one archetype that's been consistently ignored in these tier lists: the Camus. This is probably because you almost never get to play as the Camus, but that doesn't mean there aren't good ones and bad ones. So I found some random guy's tier list on that Tierlist website, and I made my own tier list based around the Camus. And in this video we're going to be discussing it. I know, this is pretty revolutionary. First off, we have Sane tier. This tier is reserved for Fire Emblem characters who are not insane, which is a very rare trait. First off, we have the Sable Knight of Grust, Camus. Previously, I stood by the belief that not only was Camus the best Camus, he was also the only good Camus, particularly his Shadow Dragon variant. This is because in Shadow Dragon the fight is changed to be entirely optional, and so if the player goes out of their way to hunt down Camus, they actually feel bad. Of course, he doesn't really die in Shadow Dragon, but that's another story entirely. The other nice thing about Camus is that he realizes that he's on the evil side of the war, so side material like BSFE shows him working against Meduse and his cohorts. When Camus finally fought in Shadow Dragon, it's after being arrested and being told that if he defects one more time he'll be executed, so it's not like he has very many options at this point. Overall, while I still think Camus is the best Camus, I don't think he's the only good Camus after looking through the rest of them. And speaking of the rest of them, here come the next two units. Lloyd Reed is up next, although Linus Reed could take the place to fight him first. Personally though, I fought Lloyd first in my first Blazing Blade playthrough, so I put Lloyd here. Regardless of which Reed brother you fight though, they'll actually sit down and listen to Elliott's crew after the battle. They'll see what's been going on, and they'll agree to help them. Thanks, Reed brother number 1. I sure hope you weren't assassinated 5 minutes after this conversation. Oh no, that's exactly what happens. Ryoma is the final member of the Sane Club, and there's not too much to say about him. You basically ruined his life throughout Conquest, so unlike members of the next tier where he probably should go, he basically has no reason whatsoever to join you. You killed, in order, his mother, presumably his youngest sister, his brother, presumably his older sister, and at the end of the fight, you basically destroyed his country. His suicide comes off less as an honorable way to spare Cor in a difficult decision, and more of a, I have lost literally everything and there's no reason for me to go on moment. Next up we have, understandable, have a nice death, tier. This is the tier for characters who aren't insane, but are also unwilling to join you to take down the obviously evil bad guys. The first character we have in this tier is Ishtar. Ishtar is the major-blooded princess of House Freed in the second generation of genealogy The Holy War, and she also has a few cameo appearances in Thracia 776. She's the girlfriend of Julius, but unlike him, she finds the child hunting disgusting. She even cooperates with Pumper Emperor Arvis to help save the children who are captured. All of this makes it sound like she's going to join late in the game, possibly acting as a Goto. But Ishtar never joins the Allies. Why is that? Ignoring the many fan theories that exist, I think the most convincing reason is the reason she gives Julius in the final chapter. Seliph and his army literally killed every member of her family. You take down her twin brother who held similar viewpoints to her in Chapter 7, her father in Chapter 8, and her mother in the final chapter just before fighting her. With that in mind, it makes sense why Ishtar would refuse to join Seliph, but also means that she's marching towards her doom. The other member of U-Hind is General Mustafa of Plegia. Mustafa is fought immediately after Amaranth sacrificed himself for Chrom and his army, and he and his soldiers are still shook from the moment. He assures Chrom's army that he will protect them if they were to surrender, as well as offering similar protection to those of his side that would surrender. I'll admit it's been a long time since I played Awakening, but from what I remember, the reason Mustafa doesn't outright join Chrom's crew is that his family is being held hostage to ensure Mustafa finishes the job. Even if that's not the case though, the offer of mercy against Mad King Grandrel is enough to put Mustafa this high, at least in my opinion. This is a special tier for General Shiraham, perhaps the strangest Camus in the series. Shiraham is an odd mixture of good and bad qualities of Camus, and he ends up being a bit of a weirdo because of it. On the plus side, Shiraham has a tolerance level for evil. He's able to see through the Benyon Senate and abandons them, and he's also repulsed by what Ashnard has been doing. Despite the culture of thing, he also holds great respect for the Laguz. But that's where the good qualities stop. For some reason, even though he holds no ill feelings towards them, he taught his daughter to hate the subhuman menace. Even knowing how messed up Ashnard is, he continues to serve him, even opening the floodgates to destroy a nearby town to do something. They call Ashnard the Mad King for a reason. Even going up against his own daughter isn't enough to get Shirahim to stand down. And for all these reasons, Shirahim ends up in the triple question mark tier, for I have no idea what they were doing with this character. Now we have Stupid tier, for characters who are just too stupid to live. And the first member of Stupid tier is Eldigan, wielder of Mistletoe and ruler of House Nordian. Eldigan is a rather infamous character in the Fire Emblem community, although in recent times I've seen less and less mention of him. He starts Chapter 2 of Genealogy by leaving Nordian in the hands of his trainee sister Lachesis and her 3 paladins. Lachesis tells him how King Chagwell, the ruler of Augustria, moided his own father to become king, but Eldigan writes this off as a baseless rumor. Immediately after arriving in Augusti Castle, Chagwell has Eldigan arrested and sent to the dungeon. When Sigurd rolls up and is about to kill Chagwell, Eldigan steps in because that's what knights do. But all this really does is prolong the conflict in Augustria until Chagwell reaches the boiling point. Eventually, Chagwell sends Eldigan into battle to try to take out Sigurd. It's nigh impossible to take down Eldigan at this point, but he can be removed from the field if you have Lachesis speak to him. Lachesis will talk Eldigan into realizing how messed up the situation is. But rather than defecting or at least going into hiding, Eldigan decides to go back to Chagwell and ask him to consider a truce. This gets him executed. Keep in mind Eldigan had a wife and son at this time, so in summary, Eldigan's a bit of a dummy. Gale's the next himbo up in Stupid tier, being a Wyvern Knight for the Empire's Burn. Burn has a lot of characters that can be considered Camus, especially if you're a Gaijin who played Blazing Blade before Binding Blade. But Gale is pretty unique as far as Camus go in that he doesn't really have a reason not to join Roy. He's just loyal to Zephiel. Why? Just because. This loyalty to Burn is somewhat oddly placed, considering that, as an outsider, he was denied many promotions in the Burn army, including to the coveted position of Wyvern General. Even going up against his lover and her telling him to stop fighting isn't enough to get him to stop. And as a final reminder, Zephiel's plan doesn't exactly put humanity in the best of positions, and so fighting for him seems sort of, completely stupid. Finally, we have Bryce, one of the 4 Riders of Dane, and an especially stupid character. Not only does Ashnard call Bryce a loser for following him so devoutly, but with his conversation with Tarnio, it was revealed that yes, he is fully aware that Ashnard is going to destroy the world if he gets into power, but he does have an excuse for going along with it. That being he's unable to change. That's going to hold up in court pretty well. Horny tier is up next, reserved for good characters who do bad things in order to get into the pants of their superiors. All 3 of these characters basically have the same arc, so I can describe them in one bit. I'm not sure if Catherine counts as a Camus, considering she's arguably the least forgiving of Violet from the Black Eagles for their school shooting, but she is horny for Lady Rhea, so it definitely fits in this tier. Brunya and Selena are also much more sympathetic in their portrayal, but are also just as horny for their respective leaders. That's basically horny tier. Almost as large as every other tier combined, we finally arrive at broad tier, for characters that go beyond stupid. First off, we have Wolf. Wolf is the leader of the Coyote's Men, a band of knights founded by Hardin, and when Hardin goes south and joins the evil side, so too do his men, except for Ratio that no one cares about. There is one piece of information that pushes Wolf out from a normal bad Camus to broad tier though, and while it might have been Heroes exclusive, I'm pretty sure it was added a new mystery. The conversation between Sedgar and Wolf reveals that the Coyote's men had a failsafe, where if Coyote ever went crazy and evil, they were supposed to abandon him. And somehow none of them except for Ratio were able to see through the fact that Hardin became a sicko mode evil guy. This puts them in broad tier. Reinhardt is also very horny and could easily be a member of that tier. There is one big thing that pushes him down a notch. As a high-ranking member of the Grand Vale Empire's army, he at the very least supports, if not actively conducts, child hunts, and that's kind of cringy, so it pushes him out of horny tier and into broad tier. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this guy on the list, I immediately dropped him into a literally who tier, but then I remembered his name is Yuhai. Yuhai is like the second Reed brother, who we'll talk about in a bit, except unlike him, he was born with no sanity. He's a member of the Black Fang, and he's sad about how the organization is going, and that's pretty much his character. Oh wait, he's also a plainsman, he can't forget about that, that's a very important character trait. So he eventually decides he's going to suicide on your army, because there's a rule in the Black Fang that if you betray the Black Fang, you get hunted down by Mr. 25% Strength Growth Legault. The thing that pushes him into Blood tier is that by this time Legault has left the Fang, so there's nobody in that position that would hunt him down. You think this would be the best time to air grievances because if you get deemed a traitor, they can't hunt you down, but I guess it's better just to die. So the first Reed brother you fight might have been in the top tier, but the other one isn't so great. Whichever Reed brother you fight second ends up losing all of their sun stat, turning them into a suicidal murder hobo. They can actually learn that no, Eliwood's Boys did not kill their brother, but they'll still choose to suicide themselves on the army. Lloyd will actually step off the throne to make it even easier to kill him, while Lioness on the other hand will just ignore you entirely and keep going for the kills. It's kind of pathetic to watch them, honestly. Radiant Dawn is one of the best Fire Emblem games, but the new characters got no time whatsoever to develop. This extends even to the new NPCs, whose names I don't remember and I don't care to look up. The first Camus we're talking about is a senator without a backbone. This is some old man who just goes along with whatever the Senate tells him to. You were actually going to be able to spare him at one point, but I guess they figured no one would bother because he's completely worthless. The second Camus you fight right after is Zelgius' boy toy, who wants to destroy the world because Zelgius said it would be pretty poggers. That's about it for their personalities too, so you can see why these guys are pretty high up on the tier list. Yanfei is a very special character. As a kid, he was my first experience with Camus, because I forgot about Mustafa the chapter after he died. Yanfei, on the other hand, gets some more build up to him, so you actually remember the fight. Turns out, though, this fight was kind of a complete waste of time. Yanfei decided to ally with Walhart to protect his sister from Excelis, but Walhart decides to hunt down Sayri on his own, so that kind of blows a hole in the whole operation. Xander, everyone's favorite Fates character. Xander ends up playing pretty similarly to Wolf, in that they're both noble knights who serve an obviously evil king. King Gurren in particular commits more war crimes than a Myrmidon scores critical hits, yet Xander will hold strong to the fact that once Garen was a pretty okay person. This conflict culminates in Xander yeeting a technical adult, and disregarding the words of said technical adult by suiciding onto a corn cob. If you're confused by the summary I just gave, then don't worry. You're experiencing the authentic Fates experience, not having any clue who wrote the story or what they were smoking while they were writing it. To end this tier list off, we have Light Yarn. Being a hero's OC basically dooms her to having Radiant Dawn tier deaths. In this case specifically, she's basically female Xander. While unlike Xander, she sacrifices herself to save her sister instead of killing her sister, there's really not much difference between the two. They both serve a comically evil armor knight father, they're both noble knights in an evil kingdom. It's basically just a retread of the same story. And so while Lake Yarn is slightly better than Xander, she's not better enough to be put into another tier. Now that we're at the end of this tier list, what have we learned? I think the main message I've demonstrated here is that most Camus really aren't that great. The idea behind them is pretty good, but unfortunately they seem to be botched every time they're attempted. I'm not very sure how they can do this because it's really not that difficult of a concept to nail down. They even did it well in their first attempt. But I guess writing's difficult. Welcome back to the end of the video where I just list off some points and you can stop watching now. I think the next video, I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I have a couple ideas. I finished not Gunvolt, but Luminous Avenger X2, and I kind of want to make a video on that because it answers a very interesting question in my mind that I think I can make a fun video based off of. Another video I think I might make is a Dragalia Lost video, kind of to like remember it since it's going to die in a couple of months. And as always, another One Step of video is always on the table since people seem to like those. I had some fun making this video. It's kind of different from what I normally did. I kind of wish I could have footage, but I don't have all those games ready to film right now, so you gotta be stuck with another PowerPoint video. So yeah, until next time, I hope you guys keep watching and I will keep making the videos. Alright, goodbye.